Welcome in the Rover Sports, guys. How's everybody doing? Today is a very tough day for the Niner Empire again. Reuben Foster, a linebacker from Alabama, a guy that had some question marks going into the draft because of a combine incident where he got in an altercation with a doctor. Reuben Foster, after the marijuana charge, he's now been charged and put in jail for a domestic assault or for a domestic charge, and he was carrying with him this assault rifle that's like basically it's I think it's an SM-15. It's like an AR-15 caliber gun, which is like an assault rifle, which, you know, if you're going to use it for protection, I'm not sure you would need an assault rifle. He was carrying it in California, which is illegal to be carrying an assault rifle. But the domestic assault is more troubling. And there's a lot of, reasons. There's a lot of things that John Lynch is going through right now. John, Jed, York, and but pretty much John Lynch is pretty much going to be looking into the charge to see about the domestic assault and the charge. Reuben Foster had the marijuana incident. He had an altercation with a doctor. And there are NFL players that have been carrying guns in wrong places and have been fine or have rejoined the team and have been, allowed to rejoin the team and have contributed to the team and their success. Nigel Bradham for the Eagles was carrying a gun in an airport, and, he's been on the Eagles and he hasn't been trouble. Some guys carry guns, especially in the southern states. Guys carry it to protect it. It's legal to, Second Amendment's legal to carry a gun. And also Ryan Tannehill's wife was carrying a gun also on her way to an airport ride. So people and players have had guns before. Now you look at the Reuben Foster case, and the Reuben case is significantly different from a lot of other players' cases. Because let's talk about Reuben for a second. He had the mark against him at the combine. John Lynch rated him the third best linebacker on the board. But yet guys like Gerard Davis from Florida were drafted ahead of Reuben Foster. Hybrid guys like Evan Ingram, Jabril Peppers, and David Njoku. All these players in the first round were drafted ahead of Reuben Foster. Jonathan Allen, who came from Alabama as well, who had the same who had really bad injuries, was taken ahead of Reuben Foster as well. Marlon Humphreys, who I just thought was okay at Alabama, was taken really high at number 16. So Reuben Foster, if you watched any Alabama game with Nick Saban, Jeremy Pruitt, and Kirby Smart, you always saw number 10 running around. I don't think there's really a question of the guy's talent, and he did come on in the second half of the season, was great against the run, is learning how to play in coverage, and I think, Reuben Foster on the field has the potential to be a Pro Bowl guy that is very physical, and a guy that with a middle linebacker, if he's playing strong side linebacker, can get after people. Is Reuben Foster one of the types of players like a Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think is an irreplaceable player? I don't think he is. I think you can find a Reuben Foster. I don't know if you can duplicate it in this draft, but Reuben's a talent, okay? The guy's a talented player, but he is not an irreplaceable player. I think you can get a linebacker in the first round, and I think you can maybe, now Brock Coyle becomes pretty pivotal to re-sign. And then at number 10, I expect you to have your choice of either Tremaine Edmonds or Roquan Smith, two linebackers that are highly coveted. And I'd prefer Roquan Smith because of his experience, his leadership qualities, and because he can also fly to the football. But talking about Reuben Foster, let's analyze the pros and cons to Reuben Foster. The first thing before we analyze pros and cons is we need to see the domestic assault, because that is the real thing in question. If the domestic assault is serious, you have no choice. You're not going to have Greg Hardy playing for the 49ers. You're not going down that road. You saw how sensitive, and justifiably so, when you have a domestic, assault problem on your hands. Now, there are some people, that use that term loosely, domestic assault. So we're just going to have to see what the issue is, and that's why we got to take our time and not jump to conclusions. But let's analyze right now the pros of keeping Reuben Foster. The pros of keeping him on the field: a talent, a guy that in the locker room you can see that the players enjoy this guy's company. Reuben Foster, even though off the field he's been trouble and a headache to deal with because you don't know, is he getting in trouble, arrested for marijuana now? These are 2 arrests in the past month, and we're not even like 4 months into the offseason. In football, you have the longest offseason of all the professional sports. But the plus to keeping him is Adrian Colbert's a friend of Reuben Foster, Kittle. The rookies really like him, whether it's Bourne, whether it's Trent Taylor. This is a tight rookie class. Matt Breida. Reuben is a guy on defense that has a ton of respect, and he plays fearless, and he brings a tone and tenacity to your defense that's great. I don't think Reuben's going to be a Lawrence Taylor, but I think Reuben could be a Pro Bowler. And I think he could be a very good player that definitely hits, and that's definitely fun to watch, and a guy that on the field is definitely a fan favorite of guys on the field. But now let's talk about Reuben and the downsides, the cons to keeping Reuben. One, it's a constant headache. Where's Reuben? What's Reuben doing? Is Reuben going to keep his head on straight? Two arrests in the past month. So right now, Reuben, for him to be carrying around this huge gun, this huge AR rifle, is already a red flag decision. That is already a terrible, terrible decision in my opinion. If he's carrying around like a pistol or something to protect himself, it's another thing. But he should be communicating with people. He should have people that are guiding him, and carrying around that gun is quite simply a really stupid decision. Having the domestic assault, losing your cool, and having him go to jail, something must have happened. I just think that something controversial must have gone on. You look at Ezekiel Elliott, he was suspended 6 games. I'm not even as worried about the NFL standpoint. Here's maybe my biggest qualm with Reuben Foster, the biggest con to keeping him, is that right now the 49ers and John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, we're still in the early stages of their tenure. And you hear the word John Lynch uses all the time is culture. Culture. And I agree that all successful teams have a tight-knit locker room and have culture. And with Reuben Foster now, if he gets back on the team, you are sending a message that, one, your talent, if you're great and talented, the 49ers will definitely give you opportunities depending on your talent level. And 2, you're not going to be held as accountable for your actions. These are 2 arrests in the past month. And what kind of repercussions is this guy going to get? So I think that building a culture is incredibly important. I think building a winner, you need to have disciplined guys, especially in the offseason. The world we live in with social media, I do understand that, a team that I grew up liking was the New York Giants, and it was the 1986 team. And I know that Taylor, and I know that Lawrence Taylor and guys on that team would go out and do coke and drugs, okay? That's been reported and done. And they showed up on Sunday and were great. And I'm really worried about the domestic assault. We need to get that cleared. But the fact is, this guy, Reuben Foster, gets arrested twice in a span of 2 months. That is just crazy. Like when you're marked for marijuana, when you're marked for the combine and you're passed up and people are telling you that this guy has character issues, and then the guy now goes out with this AR machine gun, and it's terrible decision making. It's ludicrous decision making. It's crazy, unaware decision making. And it's decision-making that is troubling and you're going to have to deal with. And frankly, I don't know if this is going to be the end for Reuben Foster, if this is the kind of decision-making. The guy's a young guy. Reuben Foster might need to go and mature and grow up and then go out and maybe in 2 to 3 years, he might need to, unfortunately, he might be a guy that's released a couple of times and he needs to get his act in order. Teams will pick him up. But for Reuben Foster right now, the way that I honestly stand on it is I need to know about the domestic assault. But I think that it's not sending a great message for your culture to just turn a blind eye to what this guy's doing. I want to build a culture where the 49ers are disciplined, where they're obviously not getting in trouble, where you're sending a message that you need to be responsible off of the field with your spouse, with your belongings, with not doing drugs. If Reuben just did weed, by the way, like Josh Gordon, even Lane Johnson was doing peptides and things. Smoking weed, I think, personally, is innocent, but yet kind of something that you use for stress, okay, Josh Gordon. But now you're talking about guns and you're talking about domestic assault. And there's, I think, a hierarchy of discipline or a hierarchy of wrongdoings. And this is certainly a much higher up hierarchy of wrongdoings on the surface. And this is a guy, again, just got in trouble. It's a huge headache. I'm really leaning towards cutting Reuben Foster. I mean, even though the guy's an attack-style linebacker, you got to build a culture. This is very crucial this time, how you handle players, how you're tough. And I want a no BS culture. I want John Lynch in this culture, again, to really, when you come to the 49ers, you can't screw around. You can't. You need to be responsible. You need to carry yourself like a Niner when you're in Santa Clara and San Francisco and when you're back home. You need to carry yourself like a Niner. And Reuben's gotten second chances. Lynch took a chance on him, second, and now a third chance. And he's only in his sophomore season. He's still so young. He hasn't strung together years of being a pro without having trouble in the offseason. So I think you got to send a message, and if you keep Reuben Foster, you're sending a message that Reuben's just so damn talented, we're going to overlook his problems. People around the league will point that out. They'll look at your franchise a little bit differently, but your team will also not respond, I think, in as mature a way. If you cut Reuben Foster, you send a message that no one is more important than the team and no one is more important than the culture. And the culture of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan is at stake with this decision, and this is why it's a pivotal decision. And this is a guy that's a young guy that, by all accounts, is not a guy that's going to quickly revamp and change. This is a guy that was lectured to about marijuana, was talked to, and yet he went out there in 4 weeks and, again, got arrested. So I do feel a little bad for Reuben Foster. If you know anything about the kid, you know that he has a very adverse upbringing, that he didn't have a clean upbringing like a lot of us did. I mean, his dad is a freaking fugitive, and his dad actually shot Reuben Foster's, I think, mother when he was young, which is just crazy, crazy stuff. So this guy's had a crazy life. Reuben's a likable teammate when he's in the locker room, but Reuben right now is a liability. And I hope the best for the kid. I really do. I hope the best for Reuben. But right now I'm really leaning towards cutting him unless we get something that the domestic dispute was not a big deal, like some of the domestic disputes that are out there. And we need facts and we need info. So take your time on this, Niners. Leave your comments below. But right now, I'm leaning in favor of cutting him. Marijuana case, I was on board with Reuben. I was going to stay. This is just another level, more headache, and the culture needs to be established, a no BS culture. You got Jimmy Garoppolo. This is a damn important season. It's time to take advantage and build a championship culture. Leave your thoughts below. Thanks for watching the video.